where I play, as long as I go number one in the draft.
From the Erie Otters, Connor McDavid.
From the London Knights, Mitch Marner.
From the Western Hockey League's Brandon Wheat Kings, Nolan Patrick.
This is Tracking the Draft with Craig Button.
He checks an enormous amount of boxes. Nobody in this draft did more with less. I absolutely love him. It's not his skills that anybody's concerned about, it's that playing attitude. And quite frankly, it's really poor.
Speeding towards the future of the NHL.
From the U.S. Development Program, Jacob Trouba.
From Färjestad of the Swedish Elite League, Jonas Brodin.
From the Boston U Terriers, Brady Tkachuk.
He could play in the NHL next year. He's one of those guys.
Here's your host, Dean Millard.
Hello there, and welcome to another edition of Tracking the Draft with Craig Button. The Director of Scouting for TSN and former Stanley Cup champion will be along very shortly. This is Season 2, Episode 18. I hope you enjoyed Episode 17, where we did scouting tips and story time with Craig, and we'll try to do that at the end of the season again. We actually got a bunch of questions afterwards, so we've got a good stack for the next time that we do that. And on this program, the stars of tomorrow are discovered and discussed. This is who we will be discussing on the show today. Justin Robida, a center with Val-d'Or of the QMJHL. His father is former NHLer Stephane Robida, and he's having a pretty good season. Dultak Scouting Service purchased this NFT for just $75 in the scouting auction of the Ultimate Fantasy Hockey League, and they're probably going to make a pretty penny. Aatu Raty is a center with Karpat of Liiga. RubyISS Scouting Services purchased this NFT, the very first NFT auctioned off for the Scouts. $300 he went for, and man, that was a wild, wild day. And we're also going to discuss a right winger, Nikita Tabrikoff with SKA St. Petersburg. He's played at a bunch of different levels. Spitfire Scouting purchased this NFT for $125. So, scouting is so important in the ultimate franchise fantasy sports platform. In our hockey league, the scouting is where it starts. And you're always scouting. My assistant GM, George Batchel, who also runs our AHL team, sent me a message today, said, hey, this guy was named to the U18 team, Thomas Milic. Maybe we should look at him. Goaltender for Seattle. Didn't see him on anybody's scouting list. Sent him in. Boom. List him for $20. If this guy pans out, that $20 investment could be really, really great. So you can get in the game where you own the game, and you can scout real-world players for fantasy franchises. Yeah, it sounds way too good to be true, but it is amazing. You can scout the exact players that Craig and I are going to be talking about today that are out there. You go to your local rink, you see a good player, he's not listed, boom. You list him, and you get the cash. Check it out at uffsports.com. And as mentioned, get in the game where you own the game. All right, let's bring in the main man right now.
Here he is, the Director of Scouting for TSN, former GM of the Calgary Flames, and a Stanley Cup champion with the Dallas Stars. Plus, he's a sharp-dressed man with a heart of gold and a passion to match it. Craig Button.
All right, Craig, it is great to chat, and that story time and scouting tips that we did last week was just absolutely so much fun, and we ended up getting a bunch more questions in afterwards. So we've got some good questions for the next time we do it, but we're going to focus on one or three players today, and one of them in particular is a guy whose father played in the NHL. We're talking about Justin Robida, a center with Val-d'Or in the QMJHL, and this NFT was purchased by Dultak Scouting Services for $75. So could be a really, really good find for that scouting service, depending on what happens in the draft and the auction. Now, his father, Stephane, was a really good defenseman in the NHL. He was born in Dallas, grew up playing hockey in Quebec. What type of player is Justin Robida?
Yeah, well, okay, so I'm going to give you a little bit of background on Justin, too. So I've watched Justin for a number of years now. So a couple of things. You know, he played for Magog in the Quebec Major Junior Hockey, or in the Quebec Midget AAA League, and they won the Midget AAA Championship that year. Felix Potvin was the head coach. Anyway, he also won gold at the Canada Games. That same year. beating Ontario with the likes of Brant Clark and Shane Wright and Brendan Othman. So Justin has a pretty good track record of success and winning. Now, you hear me say this all the time about not scouting with a tape measure, and I think that it's easy to see that Justin is 5'8" or 5'9" or whatever he is. And so you watch him, and when I first started to watch him play, you start to go, okay, yeah, and you heard all the talk, and you heard all this kid's a really good player, and you watch, and you go, okay, yeah, you see the productivity, and then I put on my NHL projection hat, and I'm looking for things, and I'm going, okay, is he quick enough? Is he fast enough? Is he this, right? And I ultimately came to the conclusion that the whole is absolutely greater than the sum of the parts. His brain, his competitiveness, his puck skills. Like, if you asked me what would be the one standout quality for him, I would say his intelligence. But if you asked me, are all of his qualities standout? I'd probably say no. But when you put them all together, it makes him a really good player. And it makes him a really good, effective, productive player. Because he can do so many things in the game. I mean, it's easy to look at the stat sheet, right, Dean, and say, oh, he's got this many goals, he's got this many points, therefore he's good. But I think the appreciation for Justin is as you watch him and you continue to watch him, is moving away from the idea that, okay, yeah, does he have the blinding speed? No. Does he have this overwhelming shot? No. Does he have this great ability with quickness and puck skills? No. But you watch the game, and he has the puck, and he makes plays, and he's in the thick of things, and he's in the middle of the play. And much like his dad, who had a great NHL career, and I say great NHL career because, as a defenseman and the way Steph competed, I think that, you look at Justin and you look at a player that goes, yep, he's a really good NHL player. He's a really good NHL prospect. He's going to be drafted. He's going to end up being better than his draft position warranted. And you're going to hear probably from teams down the road, yeah, we weren't sure about this, we weren't sure about that. And that's where I've come to a great level of satisfaction that, like, yeah, you're right, and you're wrong because of the overall ability of Justin Robida. Really, and the other thing about him, I think there's 9 forwards or 12 forwards on a team, right? I start to look at all those different positions. He can play all through your lineup. That's a pretty valuable thing to have.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like there's a lot of holes in his game. Do you think
bingo?
Yeah, is this a guy you would put in your top 40 in a normal year doing a Craigslist, or is he maybe just outside of that? What's your prediction on that?
Well, I'll tell you this. I'm going to have a top 40. I don't know if this is a normal year or an abnormal year. Everybody can decide it. You still have to do it.
Yeah.
He will be. He'll be right there. He'll be right there. And I mean, he's not going to be, for me, a player that's going to be outside of the top 50. I can guarantee you that.
There we go. Now, what quality or skill do you think he resembles the most from his dad's game? Obviously, different positions, but do they think the game kind of similar? Is there one quality that Stephane had that Justin has?
Steph, every player has different attributes, and every player has to understand how to use those attributes and those skills and whatever your game is. And at the same time, not try to put yourself in spots where you're not able to use your strengths to the greatest advantage. Steph was massively competitive. He was a really smart player. But the other thing, Steph was always in the middle of things, but he was never in positions of vulnerability. He leverage. He got underneath you. He got up on you. So a big player, like he wouldn't wait for that big player to start to gain speed, and now where you got to handle not only the speed but now you got to handle that size, and now he can kind of overwhelm you. Steph was able to get right up on you, so before you get moving, the puck was off your stick, or he checked you where you couldn't get moving. I think Justin's very similar in that regard. He's not going to go and try to take on somebody in a physical battle that he knows that his chances of winning aren't very good. But what he's going to go and do is get to the puck before you, or skate you into a spot where he's going to strip you of the puck, and he's going to give up the puck before you can take him out with your physical advantage. That ability to pass the puck where a defender now can't latch onto you. So he passes the puck, that defenseman has to open up, and now Justin can get to the next spot. He's a forward, which is different than Steph, but that ability to read the play and not put yourself into where you're vulnerable, to not be able to use your greatest strengths to your advantage, and that you recognize that. So Steph did that exceptionally well for a long time in the NHL. I think Justin does it, equally well.
All right, the next player we're going to chat about is Aatu Raty, centerman with Karpat in Liiga, and this NFT was purchased by RubyISS Scouting for $300, and this was the very first NFT that was auctioned off in the scouting auction. And as per your direction, Trish was in there doing the bidding, and we just weren't sure about what the bidding was actually going to be like in this system. And he ended up going for $300. I still think that RubyISS is going to get their money back, even though the hype train was pretty high. He's dropped a little bit from the number one pick conversation, as we talked about last week. It's probably a combination, Craig, but what do you think is the bigger factor? Is it Raty regressing, or is it that maybe some other players around him have maybe gotten a little bit better than maybe how he has played? What do you think is more?
I don't know if it's either one of those things. I don't know if it's more of one and less of another, or opposite. What I would say to you, Dean, is this. Aatu Raty, to me, when I break down his game and I watch him, the skating is excellent. And it's not just speed, it's power, it's quickness, it's agility, and his ability to use that speed in so many different ways. I think he's got really good puck skills. I think that he can shoot the puck, he can make plays on the move, and I think that he's an intelligent player that can understand how to take advantage of those skills, and he's competitive. So you asked me this, so what's happened? Here's what I would say. I don't think anything's happened. I think what's happened is that he's not quite ready to handle the rigors and the challenges of the SM Liiga. I just don't think he is. Does that mean he's not a good player? No, it doesn't mean that at all. It just means that where he's at with respect to his maturity and all different levels of maturity, that's a demanding league. That's a really good league to play in against really good players. And so, if I use an example, and you can look at it in two different ways. So Jesse Puljujarvi, who ironically played in Karpat Oulu, right? I mean, he was an excellent player at 17 and 18 years of age. But you bring him to the NHL, he wasn't ready to play in the NHL. He wasn't ready to perform. And now you look at him and say, oh, what's wrong with Jesse Puljujarvi? Well, maybe he just wasn't ready. He comes back now. I mean, think about it. It's 5 years, or just about 5 years since Jesse got drafted 4th overall. He comes back now. He's a much different player. He's a more confident player, and he's tracking in a different direction. I feel the same way about Aatu. I think that he's got lots of qualities and lots of attributes that are going to allow him to be a really good NHL player. emphasis on really good, because despite the fact that everybody wants to go in there and have this great confidence, oh yeah, good, I saw it. Well, he might not be able to demonstrate it fully right now, but I'm satisfied to such a great extent, having watched him for a number of years, that those qualities are all there. I just tapped into some 2019 U18 championship video. Finland. Anton Lundell was an underage. Aatu Raty was playing Lundell was not playing as an underage. He was a late birthday, so he wasn't eligible for that draft. Aatu Raty was playing as an underage player. And I go back to it, and I see the ability of him to do so many different things in so many different ways. And so, you watch games from the SM Liiga. I watched games last year from the World Junior Tournament. I got to be honest with you, I'm pretty satisfied that he has very good NHL potential.
And this is the other thing, Craig, that, people get a little caught up in, he didn't make the World Junior team. Yeah, you know who didn't make a World Junior team? Marty Brodeur. Worked out pretty good for him. And then people say, well, he's struggling against men. Yeah, I remember a guy in Boston that struggled against men in his first year by the name of Joe Thornton that worked out okay. So, well, I think there's right to project players where they are. And as you mentioned, he's probably not in the running for number one, but we sometimes get caught up with, not being number one. Well, number 2 or number 4 or number 5 or number 10 or number whatever in the first round or any draft, any round is still pretty good. So this is still going to be a good player. What are the things that really excite you for whatever NHL team gets him? Because he also could be pretty motivated with a lot of people talking about how much he's struggling, when in reality, he's just a teenager. I mean, at that 2015 World Juniors, everybody was talking about Jesse Puljujarvi.
Well, and what I would say to you, Dean, is that, you know what, like I tell young players this all, just keep playing, just keep working on your game. Who cares? What the scouts are not always right. They're not always wrong. But if you're drafted high, you want to show that you're worthy of being drafted high. If you're not drafted high, you want to show that you should have been drafted high. That's the reminders I give young players. That's what I want to see them be able to do and continue to do. So, when you are sitting here watching players play, and yeah, you want to be able to see, yeah, look at it, yeah, I'm calling, but it's still a projection game. 17 and 18-year-old kids projected into when they're 21 or 22. Jere Lehtinen, I was with the Minnesota North Stars. Jere Lehtinen was playing in TPS Turku. Now, and the wonderful scout Matty Väisänen worked for the Edmonton Oilers for years. He came to work with us in Minnesota. So we're over in Europe. Matty told us, watch this player, watch that player. This is who you just follow him, because he was a great scout and had very great. He had a great record of identifying top end talent. At the World Junior Tournament in 1992, he ended up having an unfortunate stroke. The tournament was in Fusen. And so Matty, the last 4 months of the scouting season had to work on his rehab. So we had to spend a lot more time following up on the players in Europe, and certainly players that Matty would have gotten. Long story short, we come to our meetings. Now, Jarkko Varvio, who was a smallish scoring winger, really good one. So he'd been great at the World Championships. We'd watch Jere and everything. So we come to the draft, and now Matty he's in our meetings. He's recovering. He's doing really well. And we keep saying on our list, Jarkko Varvio ahead of Jere Lehtinen. Well, Matty keeps kind of shaking his head, and Bob Clark was our manager. Les Jackson was such a superb, leader with respect to guiding it. Well, Matty, he would say, switch Lehtinen and Varvio, and we'd have the discussion. And, we really liked Varvio. We liked Lehtinen too, but Matty kept telling us Lehtinen. Well, Jere, he liked Varvio, don't get me wrong, but he said we got him in the wrong order. And, Gary wasn't as big, he wasn't as developed, he hadn't advanced as much. Well, I'll tell you what, we were really, really lucky. Not only to have Matty, we drafted Jarkko Varvio in the second round. So we got our way in terms of how we had projected it. We got really lucky because we got Jari Lehtinen in the fourth round. I think Matty was pretty correct, eh?
Yeah, exactly.
I think it was one of those things where you're like, oh, like people say, oh yeah, you drafted Jari Lehtinen. Yeah, despite our own stupidity.
That's right.
Yeah. In spite of our own stupidity, we couldn't get out of our own way, and that's the brilliance of Matty. So the reason I bring up that story, I see a lot of Aatu Raty in that. Like, yeah, he hasn't shown this great ability to produce at this elite level that would give every scout greater confidence to draft him higher. Mm-hmm. But I don't see any limitations in his ability to be a very good NHL player.
Yeah, indeed. And you imagine you put him in the QMJHL or the OHL and the WHL, and the numbers would be so much higher. So everything in perspective, obviously, when you're scouting. And Craig joins us on the UFFS hotline. Scouting is a huge part of the platform and the lifeblood of the franchises in the UFHL. Any free agent goes through a scout, so get in the game where you own the game. Prospects, free agents, veterans, every player starts with the scouting platform. You can become an independent scout. You can form a partnership with an existing franchise. Duckman's Domination has a great partnership with High Level Scouting because my wife owns it and Craig is our president. So it is a really, really great partnership. We have George Batchel running the UFAHL franchise as well. Reach out for more information at UFH League on Twitter and get in the game where you own the game. And I talk about that team. It really is a team. I send out, we get trade offers. I get George's opinion. I get your opinion. We formulate it. And we were able to pull off what I think was a pretty good deal this week from a position of strength. We have a lot of prospects. We have a lot of draft picks. We're able to move, a first, a second, prospect in Tyler Benson, who, I think is going to be pretty good, but there's a lot of guys ahead of him for that top 6 spot in Edmonton. And we brought in Colton Parayko, along with Dante Fabro, 2 pretty good pillars to build that blue line from, I would think, Craig.
Yeah, when you talk about pillars, how are you gonna support the structure and the foundation if you don't have pillars there, right? So essential pillars, good solid players that are going to, and that's another part of scouting that I think is really important. It's, and Bill Belichick with the New England Patriots has mentioned this, and you've heard other coaches use it in different ways, but Bill Belichick says, I'm not trying to always acquire the players, the best players. I'm trying to acquire the players that will help me be the best team. And, we all know that Connor McDavid's a great player. Nathan McKinnon's a great player. But go and ask Connor McDavid how happy he is to have Darnell Nurse. Mm-hmm. Go and ask Nathan McKinnon how happy he is to have Cale Makar or Mikko Rantanen on his team. So, like all those top end players, like you need different types to be a good team. And I think when you talk about Dante Fabro is different than Colton Parayko, but they become really good players for what you're ultimately trying to do, which is to be the best team possible. And, when you talk about, dealing from a position of strength, the only way to get yourself in a position of strength is by doing the right things, like getting the right players, understanding, draft picks are going to be essential. And then as you move along that path, how do we use the draft picks? How do we use this currency to improve our team and to get us into a position where we can be very successful? Dean, you just described to me what is the theory, and you've put it into practice.
Well, and hopefully we keep doing that and I don't screw it up and drive the boat or drive the car off a cliff or something like that, because we put a lot of hard work and we're trying to build this certainly the right way. And that's what NHL teams like to do. And that's why this league and this platform is so realistic to what the actual sport is. All right, let's talk Nikita Shiverkoff, a right winger with SKA St. Petersburg, and he's played a little bit everywhere. He's played some in the KHL and the MHL and the VHL, and Spitfire Scouting purchased this NFT for $125, and a lot of projections for him to be a first-round pick, so it could really pay off. Now, I've read elite when it comes to his skating, and when I watch some video, I see the ability to change gears when he needs to, and we've chatted about that, how important it is to not just skate in a straight line all the time. That's just what I've seen on a few video clips. You obviously seen him a lot more. Is that pretty common in his game?
Yeah, he's quick, fast, and agile. And the thing about Nikita, when I've watched him play, is that he puts defenders on their heels. And when you can put defenders on their heels, you put them in a threatening position where you can now take advantage, right? So that ability to skate past defenders, that ability to change speed to open up more ice, that agility to move laterally, to open up space for yourself. When you're a defender and you're playing against Nikita, you're looking at that thing, go, okay, what's he going to do? If I get up too close to him, he might change gears on me and go by me. If I don't get my right gap or my right angle here, he's going to move to another spot on the ice and take advantage. I'm always careful here, and I say that he's got qualities of a lowercase Nikita Kucherov. He's got those types of qualities. You know how Nikita will come and drive and stop, and then you can't stop quick enough, and then he moves in and he's got the shot off. Nikita can make plays too, right?
For sure.
So when I say lowercase Kucherov, Kucherov's a great player. That goes without saying. Kucherov was a late second-round draft pick. That when I watched him play, then I thought he had NHL written all over him. I guess what? I thought he was a really good player. I ranked him, I rated him in that regard. Well, guess what? I even underestimated him because I didn't rate him high enough. And I rated him high. But I see with Nikita Shiverkoff, very similar type offensive capabilities. He's got an attack mentality. When you think back, Dean, and me and you can think back a little bit in time because we're a little bit older, but I think back to Makarov and Krutov, great two wingers with those Russian, the Soviet teams, Larionov in the middle with them, and it was more the attack mentality. They got that puck and they attacked. I think of the great play that Makarov made in the Canada Cup. You go YouTube it. He undressed Larry Robinson like Larry Robinson was a rank amateur. Larry Robinson was a Norris Trophy winner. He was a top defenseman in the world. So when I talk about attacking and putting defensemen on their heels, think about Makarov doing what he did to Larry Robinson, right? And how you get. So that's when I look at Chibrikov and I look and I go, that attack mentality. He's looking to break you down. He's not looking to take the easy way through because he knows where the rewards are and he knows how to attack and he knows where defensemen are going to be vulnerable. And he comes right after you. And he's got a good shot. He's competitive. He's hardworking. And don't underestimate his playmaking. Much like Kucherov, he's a good playmaker. And, I'm looking at a top 15 player here.
Yeah. I love 15. That reference.
Top 15. Top 15. And he might even be higher than that. He's that good.
Well, and that would be massive for Spitfire Scouting at just $125 if he went top 15. But I love that reference to the Makarov and the Krutov because it is. A lot of those times they would bring the puck up ice or they make their 4 passes in the neutral zone, but they always controlled the puck over the blue line, and that's what he does. From what I've seen, he carries that puck in. He dials it back and then jumps on you. So you're right, the defenseman doesn't know, and he carries the puck across the blue line. He has the puck, and then boom, he's dangerous. Do you think if he had the choice, he would be a shoot first guy, or do you think he's always thinking whatever the best option is? Because once he has that puck across the blue line, now the defensemen are really at his mercy.
Yeah, well, here's what I would say. I think it's more the latter. I think that he's got a balance in that. I don't think he's just shoot first or pass first. I think because he's so smart and because he has that mentality of I'm attacking at you with the idea of what is my attack going to lead to? There's a lot of players that attack and they end up nowhere because they don't understand, the next part of it. Oh, I'm going to skate fast. Well, what are you skating fast towards? What are you attacking with? And to me, that's what makes Kucherov a superstar. And to me, when I watch Chibrikov, it's similar. It's like, okay, here's where I am, and that's where Krutov and Makarov come into play. It wasn't just attack with the soul, with just attack. It was attack with purpose. It was attack with the idea I'm going to break you down to create an advantage for me and my team. So when I say he's not just shoot first, if the pass is there, he's going to deliver it. One of the things I learned about Seth Jarvis, and and I talked about Justin Robida a little bit, earlier, and Seth had this. You watch Seth and you go, okay, and then you go, is he the fastest guy? No. Is he quick? Yes. Is he? Yeah. And then I kept watching. I kept saying, like, the thing about Seth, and I think Chibrikov, a little bit different, but Seth was, when you think he was going to pass, he shot. Mm-hmm. And when you thought he was going to pass, and when you thought he would shoot, he would pass. So how do you get a beat on him? Like, because he doesn't give you one look. He doesn't just say, hey, I'm going to shoot every time, and now you can play off the shot and give him the pass. They take what's there for them because of that mentality of breaking down opponents and then taking advantage of the situation that's in front of them instead of it being predetermined.
And we talk about guys playing against men and, maybe they're not performing as well against men. Maybe we should just be saying, well, look at the experience they're building up for when they get to the next level. Like, really, does anybody care a whole lot what Nikita does this year or Aatu Raty does this year against men? You're worried about what he's doing against the best. So maybe we should be saying, how is he using that experience to his advantage? How is he gaining this experience with the men?
Well, it's a great point you just make, and that's projection. You're looking at 17 and 18-year-old kids, mm-hmm. So it's all about projection. Like, yeah, I'd like to be able to watch Nikita Shiverkoff play against NHL players and produce and go, oh yeah, I know he's going to do it. You don't get that luxury. So what are the qualities they possess? And then you try to say, okay, when they mature and they physically mature and emotionally and mentally mature and everything that goes with the maturation process, where do they, how are they going to look then? And so so I think that's like what you talk about is right there. So now you ask me, what's the experience? Like, and again, I talked about Justin. When you're not the biggest player, so that could be when you're younger and you're not the tallest. That could be, you're advanced a little bit playing up against older players. You learn what you can do, but you learn just as importantly what you might not be able to do. So that learning curve goes both ways. Okay, like I'm not going to ever be 6'2" and be able to overpower you like a Jerome Iginla did. But I can use my skills in a different way and be like a Nikita Kucherov. Right? So I think those are the benefits. Smart people learn not only what they're capable of doing, but they also learn what not to do. And every single player is not going to be the same. Victor Hedman can do things that the vast majority of players can't do ever in the game, not just this year or in the league. So he's unique. But other defensemen, like Stephane Robida, had to learn what they could do, but they had to learn just as much as what they couldn't do. But because they're smart, they apply those lessons of what they can't do. So when you ask me about Chibrikov, he's smart. He learns what he can do and what he can't do at this stage of his career playing against older, more experienced players.
All right, let's wrap up with this. In our league, in the Ultimate Fantasy Hockey League, there's going to be some rule changes in the offseason. One of the stats I can't wait to get rid of is plus minus as a category. But all that stuff has to be voted on. And just like in the NHL, when you get into those Board of Governors meetings and the owners meetings, you have to think about the league, and I'm trying to get this message, and I hope everybody in our league sees it. Yes, we've built teams based on the scoring system, but it's important to look at You know, how is this going to look in 5 years, in 10 years, in 3 years, not just this year? And we've talked about that with kind of the draft lottery situation as well. Sometimes owners, GMs, etc., they're so locked on in their team, they're not looking at the bigger picture, which is what is the best thing for the league.
And one of the things that I would say, you know, when you're involved on a daily basis, you know, right with your own individual team, you know, to be able to take that step back and look at the overall league, what I differentiate between the micro of your own team as opposed to the macro of the overall league, that's not easy to do. It's not easy to do because you're looking, okay, ultimately what we do is we go, how does this affect me? How does this affect my team? And that's a type of thinking you have to be able to remove if you want to get to the greatest benefits for the league and for what I call the macro. So, you know, okay, you might look at like I look at puck handling with goaltenders. Mm-hmm. So why did they put the trapezoid into place?
Well, I think because they didn't feel that the defense. Well, I don't know why they put it in. Actually, I honestly don't know.
Because there was a whole
Craig.
bunch of. Okay, so I'll give you a couple examples. Well, okay, I'll tell you why.
But I'm a goalie.
They were looking at goaltenders like Marty Brodeur,
right,
and Marty Turco, who handled the puck so exceptionally well. So, let's take that away from them. But this is where you got to look at the macro. You got to look at it in terms of, okay, how many goaltenders handle it like those guys, right? And so you get beat by those. But so now what did we run into? You know where goaltenders used to help and really significant? They were able to handle the puck out there to help their defensemen. Mm-hmm. So now we created an environment where defensemen became more vulnerable. We took away, like the interference got called, the hooking and holding got called. So now forwards were able to zero in more on defensemen. And the goaltender used to be able to help them out. Well, all of a sudden you took that away from them. And so now we got another problem, right? And so And we can't always anticipate every problem or every consequence of an action, right? You know, you have those at different times, right? Unintendable consequences, but you got to be able to step away and look at it. Glenn Sather, to me, just a brilliant offensive mind. You know, the 1980s Oilers. You know, they're right there with the greatest teams ever. They are, and Glenn built that team. Think about this, you know, 3-on-3 and 4-on-4 hockey. I mean, they were so good. So most other teams couldn't play, right, at that level. So what did they institute? What did the rest of the league do to try to take away from the Edmonton Oilers?
They took away 4-on-4.
And 3-on-3.
Yeah, and 3-on-3, yeah, coincidental.
The power plays used to have to be served in their entirety.
Yeah.
But the Montreal Canadiens power play was so good, right? So the other 5 teams in the league said, we got to take this away from the Montreal Canadiens because they beat us. So that's how the 2-minute power play became, instead of serving it in its entirety, it became one where if you score. So, you know, I get it. You look at it from a micro point of view. You look at how does this affect me, you know, but ultimately you got to be able to try to step away. And you got to say, how does this, you know, improve the league? What are the benefits for the league? And the other thing I would say about that too, Dean, you can look ahead 3 years and 5 years, and you're always looking to the future. But you also have to be able to adjust, and you have to be able to say, you know what, our intentions were good, but it didn't work out, right? It wasn't what we wanted. We're going to have to make a shift there. I think a perfect example of that is the offside challenge, right? Like, you know, the offside rule has been in place forever. You know, we talk about it, it's black. There was no gray. If you're over, it's over. But they've made that adjustment now because it required an adjustment. So I think it's really, like, I think that these things are not static. I think they're fluid. And I think that you have to be able to consider things with the macro view and try as best as you can. And let me emphasize, as best as you can, to try to not just look at it through the lens of your own team or your own organization. And I was lucky. I worked for Bob Gainey. I worked for Bob Clark. They were both brilliant at that. There was others. There was lots of others that I could say. George McPhee, to me, he was fantastic in the meetings about talking about, the macro level and what it would mean. And so, I think it takes that type of thinking, that type of personality to step away from your own situation to look at what can benefit the greater number of teams, because ultimately you're going to benefit yourself.
Yeah, the whole league benefits as a whole. So
not easy
stuff
to do, though, Dean.
No,
not easy
I agree.
to do.
I agree. Yeah, I know, but it's necessary if you want the league as a whole to thrive. So awesome stuff, Craig. Less than 2 weeks from the deadline, phone lines will be burning up, and it's going to be a very interesting one this year. Obviously, probably not as busy with quarantines and such, but still very interesting. Thanks as always for your time.
Oh, my pleasure, Dean.
This is a serious message.
Craig Button joins us on the Ultimate Franchise Fantasy Sports Hotline. Become a scout and make money while providing prospects to the Ultimate Franchise Hockey League.
What you talking about, mister?
Pay that man his money.
I'm your huckleberry. Check out the details at www.uffsports.com.
It's serious.
I like it a lot. I said we got a winner.
UFFS. You own the game.
Probably my favorite part of the week, getting to talk with Craig Button about prospects and the like. And we did it last week. He told a couple of stories there as well, but he's got so many of them. He actually told me a really funny one before we started recording, so maybe that'll be included in the next time we do it. But we do a Story Times and Scouting Tips episode twice a year. We just did it last week, so episode 17 is where you can find that. You can find that right here on UFSN. It is uploaded as episode 17, Storytime and Scouting Trips, and we'll do one again at the end of this season. So that is going to wrap things up. By the way, if you have a question for Craig, email me trackingthedraft@gmail.com. You can also send something my way at that email address if you would like to join the show as an advertiser. trackingthedraft@gmail.com. Please subscribe and let us know what you think. Leave us a review wherever you are listening from or watching. Obviously, you're watching on Ultimate Fantasy Sports Network. Or possibly you could be watching on our social media channels as well. Check out UFSN. It is our Ultimate Fantasy Sports Network YouTube channel. We have a number of different shows on the program throughout the week. This show comes out usually on Wednesdays. 2 Minute Tuesday, Fantasy Hockey Time Mondays, and we have UFHL Now on Fridays. So lots of good stuff coming on the Ultimate Fantasy Sports Network. And if you're into more podcasts or you'd like some production work, please check out podcastalley.ca, past episodes and more. And as mentioned, if you're looking to get some production work done, you can hit me up there. Big thanks to Craig Button for joining me on the show as usual. Just a couple of weeks until the trade deadline. This is where stars of tomorrow are discovered and discussed. Have a great week in hockey.